Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're exploring something that I think we can all relate to. Daily bread.
Ooh, daily bread. That sounds delicious.
And no, we're not just talking about sandwiches, though I do love a good sandwich.
No, of course, who doesn't?
But we're actually going to be diving into a devotional message called Our Daily Bread,
Okay.
which uses a Bible verse, Matthew 6:11, "Give us this day our daily bread," as a kind of jumping off point.
I see.
And what I've found so interesting about this source is that it goes beyond just like the literal meaning of bread,
Right.
It really dives into both the physical and the spiritual sustenance that, we all need as human beings to thrive. So I guess the big question here is, are you getting enough daily bread?
That's a great question.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to be uncovering today.
Excellent. I'm excited to dive in.
Me too. So, the source really kind of zeroes in on this idea that daily bread isn't just about, putting food on the table. It's about everything that we need to truly flourish in life.
Yeah.
Both, like we said, physically and spiritually.
Yeah, it's really hitting on something essential there,
Right, yeah.
That daily bread isn't just about, like you said, keeping our bellies full.
Yeah.
It's about nourishing every part of ourselves.
Absolutely. And to really illustrate this point, the source dives into this, pretty powerful metaphor from the Gospel of John, where Jesus actually refers to himself as the bread of life.
Oh, interesting.
And, what I find so fascinating about this is that it's not just about, religious belief or anything like that.
Right.
It's really raising this question of, like, what nourishes you on a deeper level?
Exactly. Whether or not you connect with the religious aspect of it, the core idea there is so powerful. Just like bread provides physical sustenance, we all need something to feed our souls.
Yes.
To give us that sense of purpose. And it really begs the question, what is your bread of life? What sustains you on a deeper level?
Wow.
Is it your work? Is it your relationships, your connection to nature, or something else entirely?
I love that. And that's what this deep dive is really all about,
Absolutely.
It's about figuring out what keeps you going, how do you feed those different hungers? And the source even uses this example of, God providing manna to the Israelites in the desert.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think that story, it really highlights the importance of trust.
Okay.
Especially when things feel uncertain.
Yeah.
It's about believing that you'll be provided for, even when you can't see how.
Right.
And for some, that might mean faith in a higher power.
Sure.
For others, it could be trust in the universe or in humanity or even in their own resilience. But the point is that sense of trust, it can be incredibly empowering.
It's like a safety net, even if it's invisible. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
The source also points out that this idea of daily bread, it includes those less tangible things too.
Right.
Like a fulfilling job, meaningful relationships, a sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
And these are things that nourish us in a different way than food does.
Right.
But they're just as essential for a truly, I think, satisfying life.
I completely agree. And sometimes we neglect those needs because they're not as obvious as, say, an empty stomach.
Right.
But just like we need to eat regularly, we also need to cultivate those connections, find meaning in our work, and nurture our sense of purpose.
Yeah.
It's all part of feeding ourselves on that deeper level.
So I think we've established that daily bread has, both this physical and spiritual dimension. What I'm curious about is how this source approaches the spiritual side of things.
Okay.
Because it talks about feasting on God's word through things like prayer and scripture.
Yeah.
But, what does that even look like for someone who might not identify as religious?
Right. That's where it gets really interesting, because even if traditional religious practices don't resonate with you, the underlying principle still applies. It's about connecting with something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that connection actually look like in practice?
Well, it could take many forms.
Yeah.
Maybe it's meditation or spending time in nature or practicing gratitude or engaging in creative pursuits. It's about finding ways to tap into that sense of awe and wonder and interconnectedness.
I like that.
And for some people, that connection might be with a higher power,
Right.
but it doesn't have to be. It could be with nature, with humanity, or even with your own inner wisdom.
I see. So it's not necessarily about specific rituals or anything, but it's about cultivating that sense of something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
Whatever form that might take. And what I appreciate about this source is that it acknowledges that everyone's spiritual journey is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important message for listeners to hear.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow a specific dogma or subscribe to any particular belief system to experience the benefits of a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you and what makes you feel more connected and grounded and whole.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the meaning of daily bread, on both a physical and a spiritual level.
Right.
Where does the source go from there?
Well, the source then tackles a challenge that I think affects so many of us.
Okay.
And that is worry and anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And it offers some practical advice on how to overcome those negative feelings.
Oh, that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
I think we all struggle with worry from time to time.
Absolutely.
So what kind of approach does the source take?
Well, the source encourages us to focus on today.
Okay.
And it actually quotes Matthew 6.34, which says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own."
I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in worrying about the future.
Isn't it?
It is.
It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole.
But focusing on the present moment can be so grounding. What I'm curious about is, how does the source suggest we actually do that?
Right.
It's one thing to say, don't worry.
Yeah.
But how do we actually shift our mindset to truly experience that peace?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
The source highlights 3 key benefits of focusing on today's needs instead of getting lost in, those future anxieties.
Okay.
And those are building faith, finding peace, and living gratefully.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Let's unpack these.
Okay.
So first up, building faith. What does the source have to say about that?
So the source argues that when you focus on trusting, whether that's in a higher power or the natural flow of life or even just your own capabilities to meet your needs for today, it actually strengthens your overall faith.
Okay.
It's like working a muscle.
Oh, I like that.
The more you practice trusting, the stronger that muscle becomes.
So instead of getting caught up in the what-ifs about the future, you're really choosing to believe that things will work out in the present.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But what about finding peace?
Right.
Worry and peace seem like polar opposites.
They do.
How can focusing on today actually bring more peace into our lives?
Well, I think that's where the beauty of presence comes in.
Okay.
The source suggests that when you let go of those future anxieties and you really ground yourself in the present moment, you create space for peace to emerge. So instead of constantly, anticipating problems, you're more attuned to the good things that are happening right now.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can totally see how when I'm all wrapped up in what might go wrong, I totally miss out on the simple joys that are right in front of me.
Exactly.
So you're saying that by focusing on today, we're actually training ourselves to be more present and mindful, which then naturally leads to that greater sense of peace.
Precisely. And this ties into the third benefit, which is living gratefully. Okay.
When you're consumed with worry, it's so easy to overlook all the good things that you already have.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. But when you shift your focus to today, you become so much more aware of those blessings, both big and small.
It's like a gratitude reset.
It is.
Instead of what if this goes wrong? It becomes, wow, I'm so thankful for this.
Yes.
I can definitely see how cultivating that attitude of gratitude can really just shift your whole perspective.
Absolutely. And the source makes a really fascinating point.
Okay.
They use the example of the Israelites receiving manna in the wilderness.
Right.
Even in the midst of that challenging situation, they were still grateful for the food that was provided for them each day.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things are tough, there's always something to be thankful for.
Yes.
Focusing on those blessings can be a real game changer.
Oh, it is. It really is. It's not about ignoring the difficulties, right?
Right.
It's about choosing to see the good alongside the challenges.
Okay.
And that shift in perspective, it can make all the difference.
So we've explored these 3 benefits of focusing on today: building faith, finding peace, and living gratefully.
Right.
What I'm curious about now is, how do we actually put all of this into practice?
Right.
Does the source offer any guidance on that?
It absolutely does. Our daily bread message, it transitions then into this practical side of things.
Okay.
It outlines 3 concrete ways to really live out this idea of daily bread in your everyday life.
All right, let's dive into those action steps. What's the first one?
Okay, so the source suggests starting your day with a spiritual practice.
Okay.
And it even gives a specific example. spending 15 minutes each morning in prayer and Bible study.
Okay, but I imagine they acknowledge that not everyone connects with those specific practices, right?
Exactly. The key takeaway here is to find something that helps you connect with yourself, and that sets a positive tone for the day.
So it's really about creating a morning ritual that nourishes you spiritually,
Yeah.
regardless of what that ritual might be.
Exactly.
For some, it could be traditional prayer, but for others, it could be meditation, journaling, a gratitude practice, or even just spending a few quiet moments reflecting on what they're thankful for.
You got it. The point is to make that conscious effort to connect with something larger than yourself first thing in the morning, whatever form that connection takes for you.
I love that. It's like that saying, win the morning, win the day.
Right.
Setting that intention early on can have like a ripple effect throughout the rest of your day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got our morning ritual covered.
Right.
What's the second action step?
This one focuses on sharing your blessings.
Oh.
The source uses the phrase, sharing your daily bread with those in need,
I love that.
emphasizing the importance of helping others in whatever ways you can.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own lives and our own little bubbles.
Isn't it?
But when we make an effort to share what we have with others, it not only benefits them, but I think it enriches our own lives too.
It's a beautiful cycle. And the source highlights that it doesn't have to be some grand gesture.
Right.
It can be as simple as offering a listening ear, sharing a meal, volunteering your time, donating to a cause you care about, or just letting someone know that you're thinking of them.
Oh, those everyday acts of kindness, they're like little pieces of daily bread that we can offer to others.
They are.
They might seem small, but they can make a huge difference in someone's day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got our morning ritual, sharing our blessings. What's the third and final action step?
This one is about cultivating trust. The source encourages us to trust in a higher power or whatever source of strength and guidance we believe in all situations.
I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially when, life throws curveballs.
It is.
It's easy to feel lost and alone in those moments.
Yeah.
But the source seems to be saying that even when we can't see the way forward, we can trust that we're being guided and supported.
Exactly. And that trust can manifest in different ways for different people. Right.
Right. It might involve seeking guidance through prayer or leaning on your support network of friends and family.
Right.
Or simply just holding on to that belief that things will eventually work out.
So it's about finding that anchor
It is.
that keeps you grounded,
Mm.
no matter what storms you're facing. And what I find interesting is that the source emphasizes that the more you practice this trust,
Yes.
the stronger it becomes.
It's like any other skill.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the more natural it becomes.
Yeah.
The source actually brings it back to the beginning,
Okay.
referencing Matthew 6.33, which says, "Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well."
That's a powerful verse. But how does that translate for someone who might not, be religious?
Yeah.
What does it mean to seek first in a broader sense?
That's a great question, and I think it really speaks to the heart of, what this whole daily bread concept is all about. It's about identifying your core values,
Yeah. The things that truly matter to you and making them a priority in your life.
So it's about living with intention,
Yes.
making choices that are aligned with like your deepest beliefs and aspirations.
Exactly. And having faith that when you do that, when you prioritize what truly matters, the rest will fall into place.
I love that.
It's not about ignoring your responsibilities,
Right.
but it's about approaching them from a place of purpose and alignment. It's about having faith in the process,
Yeah.
even when the outcome is uncertain.
Right.
And the source reminds us, too, that this faith, it isn't just about believing in something outside of ourselves.
Aye.
It's also about trusting our own inner wisdom, our ability to navigate challenges, and make choices that are aligned with our highest good.
That's a really empowering way to look at it. It's not about blind faith.
Right.
It's about cultivating this like deep sense of trust in ourselves and in the unfolding of life. And that actually reminds me of something we were talking about earlier, this importance of gratitude. Yeah. It seems like those two things are like interconnected somehow.
They absolutely are. And the source actually emphasizes that point,
Okay.
suggesting that gratitude, it isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's an active choice that we make each day.
Right.
And when we cultivate that attitude of gratitude, we're more likely to trust that we're being taken care of, even when things are tough.
It's like gratitude creates a foundation of trust.
It does.
When you focus on what you're grateful for, it's so much easier to believe that good things are coming your way, even if you can't see them yet.
Exactly. And the source connects this idea of gratitude right back to the concept of daily bread, suggesting that when we're thankful for what we have, we're more likely to be generous with others,
Yeah.
share our bread with those in need.
It's like that saying, the more you give, the more you receive.
Yes.
When you approach life with that attitude of gratitude and generosity, it creates this ripple effect that just spreads outward, touching everyone around you.
And the source really highlights the importance of that ripple effect,
Right.
suggesting that, when we share our blessings with others, we're not just helping them meet their immediate needs, but we're also contributing to a more just and compassionate world.
So it's not just about individual acts of kindness, but it's about creating this whole culture of caring and support where everyone has access to that daily bread they need to thrive. That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is powerful. And, the source concludes with a beautiful closing prayer that kind of ties all these themes together. Gratitude for what we've been given, a request for guidance and strength, and a commitment to living a life of love and service.
It's just a beautiful reminder that we're all in this together,
We are.
and that even small acts of kindness can make a world of difference.
They can.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into our daily bread, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
Ooh, that's a good question. For me, it's the idea that daily bread is so much more than just physical sustenance.
Right. It's about nourishing all aspects of our being, body, mind, and spirit. It's about recognizing that we're not just receivers of this bread, but we're also givers.
Yes.
We each have the ability, and I think the responsibility, to share our blessings with others and contribute to a world where everyone has access to the nourishment they need.
What a beautiful and inspiring message. I think it's something we can all take to heart, regardless of our individual beliefs or backgrounds. So to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought. How can you become more aware of the daily bread that you're receiving, both physically and spiritually?
Right.
And what small act of sharing your bread will you try today? Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can create that ripple effect that extends far beyond what you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep seeking, keep sharing, and keep nourishing your soul with all the good things life has to offer.